What's going on, everybody? We are back. Episode number 226 of the Club and Sub podcast. This week we're talking UFC Nashville. We got the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, taking on Taliesin Teixeira. As usual, guys, before we get into it, drop a like and subscribe if you follow the show. Share if you feel so inclined. We'd appreciate it. Before we hop into this week, I can talk really quickly about UFC 317. Good night for me. I went up 4.22 units on the night. I had a unit on Peyton Talbot plus 172. Yeah, I mean, I said it here last week, but I felt like the way folks were talking about Felipe Lima, it was like Peyton Talbot was meeting Aljamain Sterling, like, with his back take ability and whatnot. Like some pretty wild takes, honestly. I still am pretty high on Lima, to be honest. He's a pretty good prospect, but he, Talbot went from getting priced like a future champion to, being priced like a guy outside the top 40. And Lima went from being a guy who was a dog to Muhammad Naimov to being priced like, well, he's a top 15 guy now. And we just, was happy to buy the dip on Talbot there. So that went well. I had 3.8 units on Gregory Rodriguez minus 200 or minus 190. Sorry. That hit for 2 units. That was good. Not about what I expected. Minutes were competitive, but, just figured RoboCop had more finish equity, more moment equity, which proved to be the case. I had a unit and a half on Hyder Emil plus 145. Tragic way for that fight to end. Hurt my soul a little bit to just watch him die so quickly to a knee, especially after trying to fade him in his last fight and watching him just eat everything that was coming at him and keep going. Then I had 2.9 units on Terrence McKinney minus 145. That got home fairly easily. Yeah, so it was a good night for me. How'd you do, Lex?
I only had 3 plays and won all 3 of them. So I had all 3 to win a unit and a half. So I had McKinney money line at minus 170. I had Josh Van at minus 110. And then I had Taporia to win in rounds 1 through 3 at minus 140.
Nice. So all right. So we'll jump into this. Absolute, I don't know, kind of a clusterfuck of a card. I don't like it one
clusterfuck of a betting card. For sure.
Yeah, I think card in general, honestly, it's not really that good. But we'll move in. First night fight of the night, Fatima Kline, Melissa Martinez. Fatima Kline, giant favorite here. She's minus 1,200. The comeback on Melissa Martinez, plus 800. I feel like this is a kind of stupid fight to make. Melissa Martinez, fun prospect, good boxer, fast hands, very good movement. Actually, decent power for a woman. Unfortunately for Melissa Martinez, she is not a great grappler. She is giving up grappling to much worse women than Fatima Kline. You go back and watch Desiree Yanez, had a lot of success grappling her. The great Elise Reed had a fair amount of success grappling Melissa Martinez. And now she takes on one of the better prospects at strawweight, Fatima Kline. Kline, very physical, very strong, very, very, very good top game. Yeah, I mean, if Kline follows the game plan, she should really win this fight without any issue. I don't really see Martinez being able to hold on to the clinch. I don't see her being able to keep this fight upright. I think she's going to get dominated on the mat. Even if Kline was to go like full 60 IQ and strike, I don't think she's horribly outgunned on the feet either in this kind of a fight. So, yeah, I think it's easy for Kline. I don't see a lot of scope for Martinez winning this short of an injury or Kline fighting really, really dumb. How about yourself?
Yeah, no, I think we see the fight pretty similar. I'm honestly tempted on the under, though it's like, why not just bet Kline sub, Because that's kind of what the line's predicated on. Her being a huge favorite, predicated on her going out there, shooting takedowns and having huge grappling success. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I'm fine passing, though.
Yeah, I agree with that. Moving on, we've got Mike Davis. He is taking on Mitch Ramirez. Current price, Mike Davis minus 900. The comeback on Ramirez is plus 600. What are your thoughts here, Legs?
I mean, it seems like a bit of a rerun of the last fight, like kind of dumb matchmaking here. Like I get Mike Davis kind of looked awful in his last fight against ZM, pulling guard and whatnot, but like Mike Davis is levels above really in this spot against Mitch Ramirez. I mean, I think he should be able to, on the feet, much better striker. In terms of the grappling, I think he can land takedowns really here at will. I think he could finish this fight really wherever he wants. I think old me would probably bet the under 2.5 here, but kind of just waffling on whether or not I want to play it or not.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel, look, I think Mike Davis should handle business. He's a much more talented fighter. He's a better boxer. He's faster, better athlete, more power. He's a much better grappler. He's also fought a much higher level of competition in the aggregate. I guess my concern is I thought Mike Davis looked tragic against Fereziam. He apparently came into that fight hurt. The guy's had a pretty lengthy history of injuries. He's pretty inactive as a fighter. It gives me some concern because the truth is, he hasn't had, he's had some really good performances in the UFC, but he's laid some real eggs, and that was one. And I'm not saying I'm interested in Mitch Ramirez. I'm not, because if you get healthy Davis, he should really, do whatever he wants here. But it's one of the reasons I'm less interested in the under than you are, Danny, just because, if he shows up and he's kind of at in that 60-70% mode, he might still win fairly easily. But yeah, I remember them saying
he's just controlling him,
Yeah,
that was. I remember that story, and a lot of other people coming out saying that, but it's I don't know, man. Was it really that bad to that kind of a degree? I don't know. That seems kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I would even go a step further to say, he came out and pulled guard off the bat. This is not a guy. This guy known for banging and for offensively wrestling, not pulling guard. So, yeah, I'm a fan of Mike Davis when he's healthy, but I have some concerns about what his current state is. So it's a pass for me all around. I think Davis should do fine even if he is compromised. But you know what I mean. Moving on, we have Kennedy and Sedriques taking on Walter Walker. Current price is in Sedriques minus 205. Come back on Walker plus 175. It's a pretty interesting fight. I don't have the best read on it. I guess I kind of lean the Walker side slightly at the number just because, I know Kennedy has gotten up okay at times in his career, and he's obviously got better cardio here. He's the better striker. He has had some bad looks on bottom, though. Danilo Marquez got his back fairly easily. Darko Stosic took him down pretty much at will when they fought, back in the day. I think his takedown defense has improved a little bit, but I'm not sure just how much. And I can't help but think, a lot of those fights where he's popping up, they're at 205 pounds. What happens if he gets a real heavyweight on top of him? And I actually think Walker's control is a bit better than he's gotten credit for. If he gets to his back and gets wrist control, is Kennedy going to be able to get up? I'm not really sure. Walker's a much bigger man than Kennedy is accustomed to having on top of him. So I do see some scope for Walker looking like pretty good value in this spot. Having said that, the concern for me is just I think Kennedy's got way better cardio. And if it doesn't turn out that Walker can just pancake him and get on top and lay on him, then what? What's the answer then? Because Kennedy's better in the clinch, and if he separates, he's going to put it on him, for this whole fight. Yeah. I see the upside for Walker in the fight, with the grappling advantage and potentially just being too big for Kennedy. But the difference in cardio, durability, striking ability, I think Walker basically needs to dominate on the mat. And if he can't do that and Kennedy can pop up like he did against Kutalaba and Clark, he's going to be the side. So I see plenty of upside for Kennedy as well. I'm happy to stay out. How do you see it?
I think what you just said at the end here is really how I see it in terms of the grappling. If Walker isn't getting takedowns, and Kennedy, this line's looking fine, if not short on the Kennedy side, because to me, Kennedy's got the cardio edge, the volume edge. Even in terms of the wrestling, do I think Walker's going to be able to hold him down 2 rounds?
Maybe.
I don't know if he's got the cardio. I don't think he's got the cardio to do it. And so that's the big question. So I think Kennedy is, I think it's a fine fight for him, really.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more bullish on Walker than you are, but I do have similar concerns though. It's I was pretty interested in the early Walker numbers, and then the more I looked at this fight, the less kind of interested I got about it.
It's a pretty big step up in class though too. I know Kennedy's not a big name or anything, but look at the guys that Walker's easily running through his last 2 spots,
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
Yeah, the under interests me a bit too, because on the Walker side, that's probably where most of his win equity is coming from. And on the Kennedy side, if he's stopping the grappling, probably a good spot.
Yeah, I agree. You're not wrong at all. Moving on, we've got Lucky Lauren Murphy taking out Eduardo Mora. Current price, Eduardo Mora, large favorite, minus 625. The comeback on Murphy is plus 450. What do you think here, Danny?
I know Murphy's 41 and it is her retirement fight, but the hell are we doing here? Mora's minus 700. I mean, the girl has cardio issues, not the greatest striker. I mean, her control's okay. Like, I just don't think she's like some elite top control grappler to where she's finishing Murphy or she's like easily just controlling Murphy here. Unless Murphy's just uber washed. And I get it. She's super old. She could be. But in terms of like her shape, she seems like she's fine, looking in shape for the fight. Going to be the better striker of the two. Like, I mean, near 5-1 on Lauren Murphy just seems kind of dumb. I'll probably just have a small shot on it just because of the age concerns. But the line to me makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't feel great about it. Like 2.5-year layoff at 41. That's kind of like AIDS, honestly. But
right.
Yeah, I'm going to compare this, and I'm not going to say which fight it is yet, but I'm going to compare it to another fight on this card where, like, I feel like I lean Murphy despite the age thing, simply because I just don't think, unless Murphy just gives up a takedown, shells up, and just lets her finish her, which I don't expect will happen, I don't see a ton of finishing upside on the Mora side in this fight. And I also think she's at a cardio deficit, so it's like, she's also at a striking deficit. So it's kind of like Mora's got to like dominate this fight on the mat in a place where like Murphy, I mean, she hasn't gotten dominated on the mat in like ages. Like Valentina took her down 4 times and couldn't really do much with it. You know, like she's been the only woman to have really big success grappling Lauren Murphy in her, like, I wouldn't even say recent career, like, but in her career was like Sajara Eubanks. And like, I look at Mora and it's like, former strawweight, you know, she's fighting up here. I know she beat Veronica Hardy in her last fight, but Hardy's never been great on the ground. Like Murphy mostly was able to kind of keep the fight standing with Miesha Tate and beat her up in the clinch. I'm not saying I can't see why she can't do that here. I can see all the reasons it might not work out for her. Her age, maybe her physicality is deteriorating. It seems pretty likely that there's been, you know, some kind of a deterioration in her physical ability. But I also just feel like if it turns out Mora can't just like pancake her, then what? Then it turns into her having to get into a boxing match or a clinch fight.
Yeah, and I think an interesting talking point on that is that, like, by far Lauren's like the most physical and the biggest girl that Mora's ever fought.
Yeah.
So like now she's the biggest favorite.
Looks in good shape too.
Career.
So
yeah.
I know people are saying like it's a retirement fight or whatever, but I honestly thought Lauren was retired already, to be honest. Like, I get it. It's a long shot spot, and I have no problem making Mora a decent size favorite just on the macro age dynamic. But when you're saying she's like north of 80%, like she's like in the 85, 86, 87% range, you know, when she was basically pick'em in her last fight with Veronica Hardy and, you know, lost to Denise Gomes at strawweight the fight before and got reversed in the grappling and gave up top position. I'm just like, I'm willing to lose a little bit of money here. It might only be a half unit or a unit, but I'm willing to lose some money on Lauren Murphy in this fight.
You feeling lucky, John?
I don't know how lucky, but I'm feeling a little lucky, I guess. Moving on, we got Jake Matthews taking on Chidi and Joe Kowani. The current price, Chidi minus 160. The comeback on Matthews plus 140. I took 2 units on Matthews plus 110, and obviously have gotten badly reversed on this. Doesn't happen often, so it's not the most fun feeling in the world. I probably won't add. I don't really want to add against the market, to be honest. But I do think it's a decent fight for Matthews. You know, I know all the reasons people like Chidi, like dynamic Muay Thai guy. You know, he's pretty dangerous, excellent kicker. But I kind of think like that's more or less the extent of his game. He's great in the clinch, and he's good with his kicks. His boxing, to me, I don't think is very good. He is very, very long, but I don't think he particularly measures the range, you know, all that well. You know, we've seen guys bomb in on him before. If you get this guy on bottom, he's really doesn't offer a lot there. He's also kind of fragile. I mean, the guy lost a striking round to Albert Duraev. People forget.
Can you hear me, John?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, sorry,
my
bad. I think we were cut out on my end. Sorry.
You good?
Yeah, we're good. No, we're good.
And Jake Matthews, on the other hand, like, there's a lot to not like about Jake Matthews. Guy's been known as a flake for much of his UFC career. You know, he's always a guy that people have thought of as having a lot of potential that's never really lived up to it. You know, has dropped the ball in some bigger spots like throughout his career. But I think he's been improving lately. He's 30 years old now. Obviously, he's won a couple fights in a row himself, beat Phil Rowe, beat Francisco Prado, which was kind of a cupcake matchup, to be honest, even though the market didn't think so. But, we'll talk about Francisco Prado next week. But, he's a good fighter. Jake Matthews is a pretty good boxer. He does a pretty good job getting in and out, cutting angles. He's got decent power. He's a very good grappler when he gets on top. Now, I don't expect him to try to grapple here. I would be betting him pretty big if I thought he'd come out trying to push the grappling. But at the end of the day, you kind of got to go with what you see. And Jake Matthews rarely wrestles when it's advantageous to him, which is unfortunate. What I do think, though, is I think he's made some big improvements to how he manages range in recent years. And also to just his mentality in fighting. Like, you look at that Michael Morales fight, which was a really competitive fight. He lost a very close decision there. And, it's the kind of fight that Matthews has kind of, flaked in the past. And he hung in there and he gave Morales all he could handle. Morales is now like a top 10 guy in the division. And that was a super close fight. And you look at the Phil Rowe fight, had some issues early and eventually just, calmed down, found the range, and just started boxing Phil up, who's a pretty good boxer. And yeah, so I think he's made some improvements. And I actually think what I saw in those fights, because the similar thing with both of those guys is Rowe's got an 81-inch reach. Morales has a 79-inch reach, I believe, as does Chidi. So, he's fought long guys before, and he's done a good job of, minimizing exchanges and getting in and out. And I just think about it on the feet, and I'm like, man, if he doesn't stand directly in front of Chidi and just let Chidi pick him off with kicks, he's probably a better boxer. I think if he can get in and out, he's going to have some success landing on Chidi in this fight. And I don't expect him to grapple proactively, but, Chidi throws so many freaking kicks that a caught kick or two that result in Chidi on bottom wouldn't be shocking. And if that happens, Chidi might not get up or he could just get finished. And then you couple that with the fact that Chidi's, 36 years old and Matthews is 30. I mean, Chidi's certainly on the back end of his career here. So, yeah, I think Chidi could obviously knock him out. Chidi could out-volume him, just outstrike him. But I think there's a lot of scope for Matthews here to keep making improvements, maybe mix in some grappling, and just win the boxing and avoid the kicking game. I like him a bit here. I took him at plus 110. Obviously, the line right now is way better than that. So what do you think, Legs?
I don't have a super strong, passionate take on the other side, but I just think Chidi's the better striker of the two in terms of the grappling, like you mentioned. I just don't think there's going to be much wrestling involved at all, even if Matthews does attempt to go for it. I think the kicks, I think the power in general that Chidi's bringing are just strong attributes really against a guy in Matthews who I just don't think he's the most durable guy either. I just feel like Chidi's bringing a lot of physicality to the table, and Matthews probably not so much. Kind of just needs to out-volume and maybe have some wrestling success as well, to your point.
Thinking a shot bet on it?
We will. We can do that.
All right. All right. Moving on. Interesting fight here. We got Chris Curtis. He's taking on Max Payne Griffin. Current price, big price for Curtis here. He's minus 315. The comeback on Griffin's plus 265. What do you think here, Lags?
It's a big price, and I'm not looking to lay the money line on Chris, but I think it's more than fine, to be honest with you. I think he's got huge volume edge in terms of the power. Yeah, Max Griffin has, a little bit of power here and there, but the guy's really not hurting a ton of guys out there. He really needs to have a lot of wrestling success here, in my opinion, against Chris to have any sort of competitive nature really in the fight. And I just don't see it.
I think he can be competitive. I'm not sure if I want to bet Max here because Max had a history of being kind of just fighting to wherever his competition is. He's another one who's fought Michael Morales pretty decently. He's fought some decent guys pretty well. He's got a couple decent wins in his career. But Max also, not the guy to really ever separate from anyone. I don't know. It's kind of weird because on the one hand, I'm like, Max fights laterally, and if he can get in and out, Curtis can be prone to just take pictures for whole fights, if you don't engage him too often in the pocket. On the other hand, Max's entire game kind of relies on speed and being fleet of foot, and he's 39 years old, and I thought he looked pretty plotty the last couple rounds with Tim Means. I didn't love the way he looked in the last two rounds with Morales, and the cardio for me is the big concern for Griffin because he doesn't even fight at a very high pace, but the guy seems to just gas himself out, with all of his movement every single fight. But I don't know. Having said that, it's Curtis is a counterpuncher, and if Max does stay out of the pocket and just, uses his front low kicks, I think he could just jab and low kick Curtis for a lot of this fight and, out point fight him. And on top of that, Curtis is coming off a pretty vicious knockout, Griffin hits pretty hard. It wouldn't shock me to see him hurt Curtis in this fight. But all of that said, I just do trust Curtis's cardio, his toughness, and his volume a bit more than I trust Griffin's. I don't know if I'll bet Griffin or not. I am leaning in that direction. It's just weird because there's nothing. I'm not really all that passionate about having money on Max Griffin here.
I mean, I get it, though. You're passionate about him making it a close fight.
I'm passionate about Chris Curtis not having the tools to be a minus 315, you know, like that's really the thing for me. Is it's like, yeah, Curtis has had some good performances, but like what UFC fight has Chris Curtis looked ironically, the first Brendan Allen fight, he looked minus 300 in, but like, and then of course didn't win the rematch, but
unreal.
Like seriously, I'm going through it right now. Like what fight? Marc-Andre Barriault, that was a split decision. Nadimov, you got owned there. Gastelum, he lost that decision. Hermanson, he got owned. Rodolfo Vieira fought him very competitively on the feet in that fight. So it's like Curtis is getting like a 75% implied price tag here on the basis of, I guess he's had higher profile fights than Griffin, and he has in recent years. But the guy is kind of a guy who'll let you dictate the fight you want to have with him, you know? So I'm leaning to Griffin. I don't know if I'll get there for a bet just because he is old and like, it's so easy for me to see with the body work Curtis does, Griffin slowing down. Like, I think Curtis is a deserved favorite.
Yeah.
I just feel like him winning this 3-4 or 4-5 is relying on him showing tools that he hasn't really displayed in the octagon, you know? Like, is he going to take the fight to Griffin? Because I wanted him to take the fight to Kopylov, you know? But, yeah, and as Mr. Meldmano said in the chat, like, Curtis is cutting down to 170, and he's coming off a vicious KO. There's a lot of bad macro for both of these guys, but I do think stylistically it's not the worst fight ever for Griffin. So we'll see.
You want a 3-1 shot bet, John?
3-1, sure.
Like if Griffin wins,
you have to take 3. Yes.
If Griffin wins, I take 3, and if Curtis wins, you take 1.
You're going to be drunk on stream next week, but sure.
All right. Well, funny enough, actually, we'll talk about it later, but I might not be on stream next week because I will be traveling for work. I'm going to Chicago.
All right. Nice.
Yes, sir.
Nice. The city of the Chicago deep dish. I'm a big fan.
Yes, sir.
Moving on. And the what?
I said I've never had it.
Oh, it's excellent. Moving on, we have got Junior Taffa taking on Tuco Tokos. Current price, Taffa minus 160. Comeback on Tokos plus 140. I don't know, man. There's a part of me that really wants to bet Taffa here because like I really look at Tokos
I'm with
and
you,
I'm like,
John. I'm with you.
I'm like, this is the kind of guy that does not win, that should not win a UFC fight. He's got no volume on the feet. He's very, very hittable. I don't think he's particularly dangerous. He does have an okay wrestling game. I don't even think it's particularly good, but it's okay, and he will go for it. And he's tough. Like, that's his best asset is he's tough. Like, he is tough. But he really just does not have any UFC level skills, if we're being honest. And like Taffa should really just run through him. You know, Taffa he's a much better striker, way faster, hits way harder. He's actually got okay first level takedown defense if you do it in the octagon, in the middle of the octagon. The problem is you put Taffa's back against the cage and he's just easy to just tip over. The issue is like 2 big issues for me. First of all, Taffa on bottom is just a disgrace. You know, it's fucking heavyweight, man. Just give your back up and get up. You know, like what are you doing? The second thing is his cardio is bad. Like we knew that. I figured, well, it's light heavyweight now in this fight, I guess. But like we knew that early in his career. But I figured it's just a heavyweight cardio thing. But then you look at that fight against Sharaf in his last fight, and Sharaf short notice as hell, and the dude's gassed out 3.5 minutes into the fight at not really all that high a pace. And had there been 10 seconds left in that first round, he probably would have gotten finished on bottom. And I watched that and I'm like, he should really assassinate Tokos here. But, you know, he looked ready to quit against Sharaf, you know, in the last fight. And then they stood it back up and he knocked him out. Sharaf was gassed, but I don't know. I look at it. Taffa looks like he's in a bit better shape for this fight. I do think if he fights intelligently and he takes the fight to Tokos, you know, on the feet, and like puts him on the fence, he'll knock Tokos out because I don't think Tokos is going to be able to set up his takedowns in the open mat, in the open octagon. I think he'll just get stuffed pretty easily. And if he is against the fence, Taffa is just going to unload and finish him. But you know Tokos is going to try to force his way forward and into the fight. And if he gets Taffa down, I just don't trust what will happen. I don't think Tokos is much of a grappler. I do favor Taffa here. And frankly, I think the line's a little short just because I just think Tokos is that unskilled. But it's just Taffa is such a liability in so many areas. Like the more like I watch him fight, and it's like, how does this guy still have a job? You know, he's an okay striker, but he really has. If you mix the martials at all on this guy, he's just got nothing there. So yeah, I think Taffa should destroy him, but I don't think I'm gonna lay it. What do you think, Lex?
I mean, starting off, it's one of those fights where it's like, are you going to feel worse losing money on Taffa or winning money on Taffa, you know?
Right.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, to your point, Tuco's not much of a wrestler, like, and that's really where he has to have, you know, really where he needs to have his bread get buttered here in this type of a fight, which I don't see it. Like, I know Taffa is a liability off his back. I know his cardio is not that great, but got a huge striking advantage, huge power advantage here. I think the line's fine. And if it keeps coming in on the Tokos side, I'll probably end up betting Taffa. I'd like to get better.
Yeah, I mean, if it got to like minus 135 range, I would do it just because at that point it's like fading Tokos with a UFC fighter at that level. Although, is Taffa a UFC level fighter? I don't really know.
See, that's another thing to point out too. It's like, are the Taffas in general, like, are they even serious about fighting?
I mean, they're not serious about training. That's pretty clear. Since neither of them has made any grappling improvements in years. But like, I think Justin Taffa is like he's fast enough to be like a UFC fighter. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shit. I'd feel really bad about losing a bet on Junior Taffa at Juice. Is all I'll say. That would really feel bad. Moving on, we got Vitor Patrino taking on Austin Lane. Another super juice one here. I do not give a fuck about this fight. Patrino minus 700. The comeback on Lane is plus 500. I don't know. I haven't been super pro Patrino since he got to the UFC. I'm still not super pro Patrino. I do think the move up to heavyweight's likely a good one for him just because, you know, lower level heavyweights are just so unskilled that he should be able to implement his game, especially if he wants to grapple fairly easily, at least at the bottom of the division.
Yeah.
In terms of this fight, I mean, Austin Lane, very fragile, very, very easy to hit. He does throw with some power himself, and he's an okay wrestler himself, but the dude's got bad cardio and is easy to kill against Patrino, who, you know, if Lane knocked him out, I really wouldn't be that shocked. Patrino's very, very hittable himself, but I do think Patrino, hardware-wise, is like way, way more dangerous than Lane. He's a lot more durable. He hits harder. He's faster. And I kind of think in the grappling, Patrino is a bit better than Lane is. You know, I've seen some people say this is wide, and it might be, but if you told me that like Austin Lane could get on top of him and control him, I would be like interested in the plus 500. The thing is, even if Austin Lane proves to be able to get takedowns, I don't think he can control him. I'm almost positive he can't. And if he is chasing takedowns that hard, he's almost assuredly going to gas. So is it wide? I don't know. You're probably splitting hairs at, 88% implied right now at the number, but I don't think you're getting like much value on the Austin Lane side. If anything, I'm happy to pass. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Patrino, huge favorite, makes sense to me. Like, in terms of the hardware, I mean, it's like night and day, really. Not to mention even the cardio. Like, I mean, Lane's got bad cardio, and it's not like Patrino's like Lance Armstrong out here, but his cardio is fine. Like, this is a setup spot to get Patrino back on the win column. Hard to see.
I agree. Really. I mean, Austin Lane has won one fight in the UFC, and he's been knocked out 6 times in his career. So that says a lot.
It's tragic. I feel bad for him, but you know, and he could have won like the Denise fight.
He could have won the last fight against what's his face. So what was the guy's name? Mario
Pinto.
Pinto, yeah. I mean, he was lighting him up, and then he just got too aggressive and got clipped. You know, that was
funny, hilarious clip. Looking good, pressuring, and then just hands down.
Yeah, crazy. Moving on, we got Morgan Charrier. He's bouncing back off a loss to Nathaniel Wood. He's taking on Nate Landware, who's hoping to bounce back off a loss to Duho Choi. Current price, Charrier minus 260. Comeback on Landware plus 220. Any thoughts here, Legs?
Well, some of us did have Nathaniel Wood against Morgan Charrier, and some of us didn't.
Not me.
Not me. I think we went head to head. On that. But to be honest with you, this reminds me of, like, in a way, of Landware's last fight. Like, I feel like Landware in this fight could look a little bit stuck in the mud against a faster guy, just more precise. Probably hits maybe a little bit harder than Landware. I mean, it's probably close. Though on the flip side, it's like Morgan doesn't really fight at a high pace. I could easily see Nate, you know, landing some big shots, having this be a close fight that goes the distance. Like, To me, at the number, like I'm fine passing, but I think it's Nate or pass at the line personally.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the line's fine, honestly.
Yeah,
I was
that's
actually
fair.
hoping this would be like minus 150 when the booking got announced, just because it's like I wanted to get to Morgan here. But yeah, the issue is, so in terms of the fight itself, obviously Nate's going to rely on tenacity and volume. Yeah, I think these are both right here.
Yeah.
I think Nate's going to rely on tenacity and volume and just trying to like use his cardio to break Morgan. The issue is kind of the issue Nate has every time he runs up against a big hardware disadvantage, where the guy who's fighting can match him in cardio, is he just doesn't have a lot of tools to offset a hardware disadvantage because he is very hittable. He's got good recoverability, but he can be hurt. And usually in those fights, he tries to push the grappling. But again, it's like one of those fights similar to the Ige fight where I just don't see him having a grappling advantage. If anything, I think Morgan's the better grappler of the two here. And you saw that last fight with Doo Ho Choi as well, who was able to easily out-grapple him. And yeah, I think it's a lot like that fight to a large degree. The biggest issue I have and why, and if that was just it, and like I trusted Morgan, and we'll get to that in a second, but if I trusted him, I'd actually probably make him wider than minus 260. The biggest issue I have in Morgan is I think he lets fights get away from him. Not the Wood fight so much. Like Nathaniel Wood is just too good. Was just too good for him. Too fast. Too skilled. But like you look at other fights in his career. I mean, you look at the Chepe fight. That was just like that entire fight came down to him not pulling the trigger enough. It happened to him a bunch of times in Cage Warriors as well. He's lost a bunch of. I think he's 5-10 if I'm not mistaken in his career in decisions, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah, it's brutal.
And it's because he's just he worries too much about picking the perfect shot and not enough about just staying busy, and like that could hurt him against a guy like Landware if this goes the distance. Having said that, I just keep trying to picture it in my head, and like I have a hard time not seeing Nate getting like wobbled a few times in this fight if it goes 15 minutes on the feet. And similarly, I have a hard time if he wants to not seeing Morgan take him down a few times. Nate's old, Morgan's in his prime right now. I feel like they're on different trajectories. I have all those concerns about Morgan's IQ, I think are very, very real. Yeah, you never know. Nate could get some judging rub. But honestly, to be honest, Nate's won most of his fights pretty clean. I don't think he's a guy who's been really much of like a weasel. But I can't see Nate breaking Morgan. And if I can't see him breaking him, it means he's got to, he needs Morgan to just kind of go into neutral.
Yeah, I mean, to your point earlier, he doesn't have much of a plan B. Like you said, you saw in that Ige fight when he's not able to land those big shots on Ige, he wasn't really deterred. It was like, all right, well, we're just kind of low volume back and forth. Ige's just landing the bigger shots on you. He's outworking you a little bit too. So
yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I think this is going to be. Like, it wouldn't shock me if you told me like it goes 15, Nate lands 100 significant strikes to Morgan's 80, but loses a unanimous decision just because Morgan lands just the much harder shots throughout the entire fight. It's kind of like my expectation, to be honest. So yeah, I have no interest in the minus 260, but I don't think you can really trust Morgan at the current price. I would have played him at like minus 200 if I had a shot there, but 260 is a little too rich for my blood.
All right.
Moving on. Probably the people's main event this week from the discussion I've seen. We've got Calvin Kattar taking on Steve Garcia. Current price, Garcia minus 120 to come back on Kattar plus 100. What are your thoughts here, Legs?
Well, starting off, it would, again, another one laying juice on Steve. Just if you're not playing Steve like this entire run and then now playing Steve at, probably one of the best prices of this entire run against his largest step up in competition, you're going to hate yourself. But at the same time, like if this does end up flipping dog, to me, I like the Steve side because to me, I mean, listen, I think both sides could look like minus 400. Kattar just knocking him out early, or Steve either finding a kill shot, maybe having some wrestling success, even outpacing him over 15 minutes. To me, it's hard not to see more paths to victory for Steve. Like I just mentioned, the wrestling avenue, I think across 15 minutes, to me, I feel like Steve's just going to be doing more, landing more, like bigger shots. But the story of the fight, really, I think, is Steve just his pace and pressure early in fights. Like it's a tough storm to try to get through. And at this age for Kattar, like he's looking slow. And Steve's, I mean, that speed's going to be a big issue early. So I lean Steve.
It's a weird one because, like, I mean, if you told me this fight was booked 4 years ago, I'd obviously be like max betting Kattar at the price, but it wouldn't have been this price 4 years ago, To your point, I don't really want to bet Steve because, like, to what you just started that with, it's like to have not bet him this run up. Like I bet him against Mahashate and he died. But to have not bet
Choi against him. I know we talked about that too.
To have not bet the rest of the run up and then turn around and just kind of step up just seems like a great way to lose money. Having said that, it's weird because like here's the thing. If Calvin Kattar's durability and his counterboxing is the same as it once was, then yeah, he should win this fight, in all likelihood. I have a very hard time believing it is. I mean, you're talking about a 37-year-old featherweight. Featherweights don't tend to age particularly well. And a 37-year-old featherweight who spent his career relying on his durability and ability to break people. And, you know, this is a guy who's taken multiple careers worth of damage in his career, who has been relying on his durability at 37. Like, that doesn't seem ideal to me. Now, look, if he comes with it intact, then yeah, maybe he'll break Steve. But the other issue is even at his peak, you know, before his last two fights, Kattar was never a great minute winner. You know, he's 3-6 for his career in UFC decisions. He's been outlanded at distance for his career. Even if you took the Max fight out of that, he's been outlanded at distance for his career. He's a guy who's lost minutes to much lower level fighters, you know, throughout his career. He just relied on like finding big shots and breaking guys. And, you know, now you look at him post-surgery and the Aljo fight happens and it's like, oh yeah, it's Aljo, who cares? And I agree insofar as the top game goes, but like who was Aljo taking down 8 times, you know, at bantamweight? Not a ton of guys. You know, Aljo's an excellent grappler when he's on top, but he wasn't the best wrestler, and those were coming real easy. Is all I'll say.
Yeah.
And then you watch the Zalal fight, and look, you and I both said it here. I even said I had no interest in Kattar because he was going to be, you know, a guy who moves laterally against him was kind of poison for his style. But I thought even despite that expectation, I thought he looked terrible. Even in that third round, I keep hearing people say how he came on in the third round. It's like, it's really more Zalal's output kind of dropped. Like he wasn't landing hard shots. I thought he looked slow. I thought he looked more plotty than usual. I thought his jab looked a lot slower than it's looked in years. So yeah, I mean, I thought he looked really bad. And then you have Steve on the other hand, and I think there's a million flaws in Steve Garcia's game. The guy's very, very open defensively. He's been hurt a bunch of times. He's going to get knocked out eventually. It might even be here. His fights tend to just be chaos, you know, from minute one until they end, you know, throughout his career. But like, if you tell me that Steve just comes to a gunfight and they slug it out and brawl, you know, maybe you favor Kattar because of his durability historically, but it's like,
right. Like Steve
really want to fade? That's what I'm saying. Do you really want to fade Steve Garcia against a 37-year-old guy with multiple careers worth of damage, like in a gunfight? I don't know. I don't think I want to. And then like I think Steve's got more scope for like potentially fighting intelligently outpointing him. I wouldn't be shocked, honestly, if he landed 2 or 3 takedowns, you know, like in this fight. It really wouldn't shock me. And then it's like Kattar's 37. So it's like I'm expecting Kattar to be regressing here. It wouldn't shock me if he's even further regressed in this fight. So like all of that is to say, I cannot get behind Kattar here. If it turns out he looks like huge value, like so be it. And I'll miss the Steve fight. I'm not going to bet Steve Garcia because for all of those points about Garcia's defensive issues, they are real. And if it turns out Kattar is like 85, 90% of what he was, he's probably going to knock Steve out in this fight. But I'm not confident, but like, I think Kattar's potential floor here is very, very low. And I think his potential ceiling is winning a shootout with, you know, a huge hitter. So I'm passing it. I lean the Steve side with you, but dude, it would feel like such shit to lay like 120 on Steve Garcia and lose, you know?
Well, you know, it's better than laying minus 120. I don't know if this number is actually going to hold or legit because it looks like it's only Bet on the Line and Cloud Bet right now that have it out, but the Ends ITD is minus 160.
I actually kind of like the other way, honestly.
Really?
I think the fight, I honestly think the fight is going to be a bit different than what, you know, a lot of people think. I sort of think Steve, there's a decent chance that he's going to try to mix the martials a bit here and like go to the low kicks, mix in the clinch, look to grapple a bit. Just a gut feeling. I could be wrong about it.
Okay.
But I like, there's just so many obvious ways. If you want to come and beat Calvin Kattar, there's a lot of very obvious things to do it, which is kick calf, stay moving, try to mix in the clinch, try to grapple him. Don't brawl in the pocket. That's basically the one rule for winning a Calvin Kattar fight is don't brawl with him, you know? Now, maybe Steve just can't help himself. It comes out and fires away, but I do think there is some scope for it. And like, what if it just turns out that Kattar's legs are just so shot that he can get taken down and held down? You know, I'm not going to bet it. I don't feel strongly about the fight. I think this fight's going to be fucking sick. So I want to see it. I just don't want to be invested in it.
Yeah, that's fair.
Moving on. We have got, another dude. They stuffed this card with so many old guys. Steven Thompson. He's taking on Gabriel Bonfim. Current price Bonfim minus 385. Comeback on Wonderboy plus 310. I mean, I don't think Wonderboy is going to turn back the clock here. Honestly, I don't. I think if they strike, he'll do fine. If they stand on the feet, he'll do fine. Right. He'll outpoint Bonfim for 3 rounds and win the fight in all likelihood. Although if they do that, he might still get knocked out because the guy's chin is clearly going. He's like 42 and a half years old. Like this guy is approaching 43 years old, and he's still fighting in the UFC. So credit to him, fucking legend. I love Wonderboy. But I also think, even though he looked pretty good against Buckley, I mean, you saw the way he kind of crumbled in that fight. You saw the issues he had in the clinch. You saw the issues he had in the clinch with Shavkat. You've seen the decline happening for a while, and now he's taking on Gabriel Bonfim. And I think there are things with Gabriel Bonfim to be wary of if you're betting on him, which in particular his cardio, I think is a big liability. But I do feel like he should be able to assert himself here. Like, I don't think Bonfim's going to fuck around much on the feet, similar to the Chaos fight. I think he's likely going to come out and chase takedowns. And, if Wonderboy can fend them off, he's going to win this fight. I don't think he can fend them off, though, personally. I actually think Bonfim's wrestling is pretty good. I don't know if he'll sub Wonderboy when he gets on top, but I do think he'll control him. I know he had some trouble controlling Chaos, but Chaos is like really explosive when he gets up, in a way that Thompson never was, but certainly isn't right now. And, I go back and watch the way Bonfim was able to control Dalby early in their fight before he gassed out. And I was like very, very impressed there. And I think if he gets to like side control or half guard here, he's going to be able to control Thompson fairly easily, maybe find a sub. It's possible. I'm not giving like Thompson enough credit with his resume and his career and whatnot, but I have felt he was done for a long, long time at this point. I almost bet Buckley against him when they fought, in their last fight. I feel like this is another fight like that. The UFC is kind of setting him up on a platter. Now, he has bucked this trend in the past, but against a guy who's going to try to grapple first, I just don't really see him doing it. I think he could maybe stuff the first couple takedowns like we kind of saw with Shavkat, but like as it starts to go, it's going to probably happen all at once. And at that point, he's probably hoping that, Bonfim gasses out, and maybe he will. But I actually think if you're going to play Wonderboy, I'd rather play him live and see how much energy Bonfim has to expend here. I honestly think Bonfim's the more likely of the two to knock him out on the feet here, even though he doesn't have many standing KOs just because of Wonderboy's shin. And he's obviously the much more likely guy to finish on the mat. I think Bonfim takes care of business more often than not, which is sad. I hope Wonderboy wins. I'm rooting for him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much finishing upside on the Bonfim side. It's so hard to ignore. Both standing KO threat in terms of and a sub threat as well. But I mean, talk about bucking the trend on the Wonderboy side. I mean, Wonderboy plus money against Luque. That was pretty nice back in the day.
That was people thought he was washed then. It's true, which is crazy. That fight was like 7 years ago.
I know. And I was just gonna bring up another memory too. I remember a couple years ago, me and you literally talking about him versus Burns, and I'm like, listen, Burns, he's an all right wrestler, not great. Like I was on the Wonderboy side, leaning that way and chalking, and it's like, I know, no, I know you did.
But this is my point though. So even on top of that, so like I'm just pulling up the stats now. Like everybody since the Burns fight, really, the jury has kind of been out on what Thompson is at this point. Burns got 3 takedowns against him and a bunch of control. Bilal got 7. Kevin Holland got 2. Shavkat got him down and got 8 minutes of control against him. Buckley got him down 4 times. It's.
And honestly, if Kevin Holland wasn't Kevin Holland and he just went to the wrestling the rest of that fight, I mean, that's probably an easy win for him.
Yeah. And that's my thing. Honestly. It's like, I don't think, I was talking with someone earlier who's like, oh, you think Bonfim is a superstar wrestler? I was like, I think he's pretty good. And I don't think you need to be much more than pretty good. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't think you need to be much more than that to get Thompson down at this point. And like, the truth is, on the ground, other than Shavkat, who controlled him relatively easily once he got him down, Bonfim is much more of a shark than anybody else he's fought in a while. So, yeah, I think it's Bonfim. I don't really.
You see with all these guys who are trying to get him down, they're not really trying to fuck around a ton on the feet. And really that's obviously like that's Wonderboy's where he's going to have his advantage, but like his margins are so thin because the time spent there is just so minimal.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Mr. Melderman saying, I think Thompson decision plus 600 is wide. I kind of agree with that just because if he's going to win, I sort of think it'll be a decision. He doesn't have a ton of
Yeah, it's
stopping
not going to be
power,
him.
you know?
Yeah, it's not going to be him KOing him.
No, and like kind of similar to Chris Curtis. I mean, obviously their fighting styles are very different in terms of how they strike, but if Bonefe gets tired and kind of just sits at distance, Thompson will kind of just, let minutes drag off and just pick at him. It's not going to sit. He's not going to really, he rarely bites down in the mouthpiece and, goes after guys. So I doubt he will here. So I don't hate that if you like the Thompson side.
And speaking about that fight too, the Griffin fight, Griffin and Curtis. Griffin by decision. It's probably a nice hefty number too.
Yeah.
Like 4-1, 5-1.
I agree.
Yeah.
Moving on, though, we have the main event, and this is another fight. It's like, dude, this whole fucking card, it's kind of crazy. Like, Nashville, pretty big party city. It's like, what do? We're just going to throw a bunch of, we're going to have a bunch of funerals, a bunch of UFC funerals in the Octagon in Nashville.
Yeah, funerals for Lauren Murphy, Wonder Boy, and Derek Lewis.
We've got the Black Beast, Derek Lewis, taking on Taliesin Teixeira. Current price, Teixeira minus 260. The comeback on Lewis, plus 220. What do you think, your legs?
Honestly, this one is so tough for me just because Teixeira, strength of schedule, the guy's had 8 fights, not exactly fought any killers really in that entire stretch. The strength of schedule gap is massive. In terms of how he fights, I don't think his striking defense is particularly that good. Lewis obviously could just connect on once and just find the kill shot, and that's really it. Though this guy's young, he's 25, seems to be improving. Huge age gap here. The guy probably, if he keeps improving as it is, probably has another 20 years in this division. Though it's like Lewis, to me, I've just never been a fan of him. Like, the guy is just high rolling these KOs, super low work rate, and he needs to find that big knockout shot, really. And I thought he's been done for years now. The guy's looked washed. The guy's looked slow. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Teixeira just lands some hard shots on here, similar to the I can't even think of it now, the Tuivasa fight. Just another guy, big guy, coming forward, pressuring, a lot of volume. And then that's it. Lewis crumbles. This guy, all of his KOs, first round, I kind of see it happening the same way.
Yeah, I agree. But trying to think of how to phrase this. I think this price is a bit insane just because, what do we know about Taliesin Teixeira? It's like the guy was getting landed on by that bum he fought on Contender Series pretty hard. The guy's got he's huge, he's tall, he's very long, but he's got very little defense if you actually swing on him. He's very, very easy to hit. Obviously, he's pretty dangerous. He allegedly has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's got a giant frame. I like the way he throws combinations together, to be honest, from what I've seen so far. Though, again, the level of competition has been so small. And then it's like you look at the Justin Taffa fight, and that entire fight is Teixeira shoots a takedown, fails, stands up, and just lands an elbow that just puts Taffa down, and that's the fight.
Knees him right in the balls.
So it's like we have learned literally nothing about this guy, and he's getting priced away like Marcos de Lima was not priced this high against Derek Lewis. De Lima, I think I shouldn't say he would beat Taliesin's ass because we don't really know. We don't really know all that much about Taliesin, right?
But on paper, de Lima had a better skill set to beat Lewis.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And that was the fucking stupidest shit in history. But that fight literally just. I can't even talk about it. But I don't know. I look at the fight and I see why people like Taliesin. I see why he's a favorite. I thought Lewis looked absolutely tragic against Nascimento before he found the knockout. He just looked really, really bad in that fight. He's looked really, really bad for years. To your point, I think he is pretty washed, but he still does hit pretty hard, and he still is aggressive, and he still is kind of a tricky fighter in that, you saw him do this with Nascimento a bunch, but if you get in too tight with him, he will clinch you up and occasionally mix in a takedown. It's like, what's Taliesin going to do if he ends up on bottom? They say he's a black belt, but we haven't seen him with the Black Beast on top of him. It's a very heavy man who throws pretty big ground and pound. You have to figure there's a fair amount of meme powers, that Derek Lewis still possesses with himself here. Teixeira, on the other hand, I think the most likely scenario is he finishes Lewis fairly early in this fight. If he doesn't, though, does he have good cardio? He's never been out of the first round outside of kickboxing, which are 3-minute rounds, and obviously there's no grappling involved in them.
Yeah.
He hasn't really beaten anybody to write home about. I don't know. It's like weird. Like I want to give a more detailed breakdown, but here's what I know about Thompson Teixeira.
Right.
He's gigantic. He throws decent combos. He hits hard. He's very, very easy to hit. That's really it. What's his cardio like? I don't know. I'm assuming it's not great because he's a heavyweight. What's his grappling like? I don't really know. What's his chin like? We still don't really know because he has gotten hit, but they're mostly by bums. What's it going to do when Derek Lewis hits him? There's just so much like volatility in this fight. I get him being a favorite just because Lewis is 41 years old, but at the same time, it's like you're giving him like north of 70% implied because.
I mean, this is the same price to cut you up real quick. I mean, this is like the same price Curtis Blades was.
Yeah, that's my point, though. I mean, look at the guys that Derek Lewis has fought. It's like Nascimento is the worst in his recent group, and he beat him. Jalton Almeida, Marcos de Lima. There's a huge list of guys here. Sergey Spivak, Sergey Pavlovich, Tai Tuivasa, Chris Dawkins, Cyril Gahn, Curtis Blades. That's like his last 10 fights right there. And now he's getting a guy who's got 40 seconds in the octagon against Justin Taffa and one off a clinch elbow. I don't know. To me, I kind of want to pull the trigger on a Lewis bet just because it does seem like remarkably disrespectful. At the same time, I share all the concerns that you have about the fight, being that Lewis is washed and didn't take shots the best at the apex of his career and certainly doesn't take them well now. But, I mean, how wrong can you be fading a debutant or not a debutant, but a guy in his second fight who's never been out of the first round of an MMA fight, who's been taking on a perennial top 5 guy over the last decade, Can you be that wrong? I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I really don't want to bet Derek Lewis, and I'm trying to stay away, and I have been doing a good job of it all year of not betting these fucking old guys. But this card is like really tempting me. They're like dangling Lauren Murphy and Derek Lewis like carrots right in front of my face here,
The Lauren,
so I don't know.
The Lauren Murphy one to me is just way more tempting. Not just because of the odds, just because of like the style matchup even too.
Is the big thing.
Yeah,
that's the
that's.
Is. I agree because it's like you look at Wonder Boy, you look at Lewis, you look at Cater. Most of the old guys in this card and the finishing equity on the other side is reasonably high and could be very high if they're declined. Whereas the finishing equity on the Mora side kind of just relies on Lauren forgetting how to grapple or just being.
Yeah.
Just quitting or being like just completely diminished to the point that she should not be physically cleared to fight, and she has a cardio edge, which I don't know that Derek Lewis has that, I don't, that's, I don't know.
And Wonder Boy does, but not to a crazy extent, maybe,
He does, but he's giving up a huge grappling disadvantage and is much more likely to be finished than his opponent. So, Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking about it. I'm considering a play on Lewis. I might just pass though. I'll put it out on Twitter in my thread this week and let you guys know if I actually end up making a play on it. I'm leaning towards passing though, dude. Honestly, like I just really don't want to lose money on another Derek Lewis fight. Like this man has burned me.
I was gonna say, John, same here. Like, do we see a 5-round decision here? Because I remember back in the day, Jalton Almeida Lewis, and I think I had an alternate form of an under there. And again, God, that ends up going the distance. Unreal. First main event.
I mean, is that the crazy? It would be pretty wild. But like, what if it just turns? What if Taliesin does just slow down really bad after a round and doesn't kill Lewis? And they're just like doing a lot of messy slows down. Is that crazy?
I was gonna say, even in the first round, what if he just slows down to just like he's a little cautious of Lewis? Again, biggest threat that he's faced.
Yeah, like Ngannou Lewis.
Yeah,
it could be a rerun of that. Yeah,
it could happen. Yeah,
it could happen.
Man, these people in Nashville could be in for a treat or a snoozer.
I hope it's a treat, and I hope it's the Black Beast, humping the octagon after he knocks out Thompson Teixeira,
taking his pants off, throwing him into the crowd. Yeah,
I mean, are you going to bet on it? I don't know. It's
on the main event. No.
Yeah.
No.
I
definitely not on Lewis.
I taped it and I just came away from it like I don't feel strongly about it. Like Teixeira's younger and he hits hard and long. He probably should finish him, but how can you lay juice on Tallison Teixeira here? Like that's if you're gonna lay minus 260, like you have to have like some certainties in terms of like the grappling or durability or cardio, and we have no certainties in that department, you know.
And if you're certain of laying minus 260 on Teixeira, like why not lay it at a better price, the under 1.5, because all of his fights are in the first round.
What is the under 1.5?
That's what he's showing you. Minus 230.
I actually like the over, honestly. Minus 210 now, actually. I kind of like Derek Lewis to make this a little messy. I might do it. I might sweat the over, have a little action on the main. Lewis has had a bunch of fights go over. You know, this is
yep.
If he ties him up in the clinch, Derek Lewis will sit there, he'll get head position on him, and he'll just like look to control it there.
And he'll take a knee to the balls, and he'll go down. Maybe.
Aussie saying of his game. I mean, he might try to. I really don't think he's going to control Lewis if he takes.
That's the thing.
Honestly.
Like people talk about, like those kind of game plans. Like we haven't seen him wrestle that. Like I get Lewis.
Well, he tried against Taffa. To be fair, like he tried to take Taffa down 10 seconds in. You know But I'm more like the guys to control Lewis are like Spivak, who had to take him down 6 times, and like Nascimento, who's like really heavy on top. I'm not really at all sold that Lewis can't just do I'm just going to get up thing against Teixeira, you know, if he gets grounded. And it does seem like a fast way to tax his gas tank. So I don't know. I'm excited for it. It's a Derek Lewis fight. I mean, hopefully we get like one more Derek Lewis miracle here.
See, here's the thing though. I'm fine with Derek Lewis fights. I love him. I love him as much as the next guy. But why main events, man? Like, what are we doing?
I mean, the UFC poster advertised it as Derek Lewis 9 first-round finishes, Tallison Teixeira 8 first-round finishes. So that's why they're hoping for fireworks.
I know.
Yeah, that's
right.
that's,
and they're gonna have fireworks. I'm sure. Yeah, of course.
But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm not going to make any commitments here. Lags, you will let me know whether or not you'll be on the show next week. If Lags is not on the show, I will get a fill-in for him. So we'll do because it is a pay-per-view. It's Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway the following week.
Oh man, is it really? Damn, I'm bummed about that. Shit, I did not realize that was.
It's honestly a pretty sick card. Sucks. I honestly have been taping that card already because I'm just so disgusted by the one this weekend. And that's way more.
I'm really excited about that card though, because I'm going to be flying. So I'm going home to Pittsburgh this coming weekend, going to Chicago, then coming back, landing that following Thursday in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to be staying in Pittsburgh probably that full weekend too. My buddy's a huge Poirier fan.
Oh, it's going to be a banger fight. I mean, dude, we have that fight. There's Charrier. There is Gautier Valentin, Costa Kopilov, Vittori Allen, Holland Rodriguez, Kyler against Lockdog. It's a fucking banger card. It is a really good card.
Neil Magny against Gunnar Nelson.
That doesn't really get doesn't get me tingling, but you know, some of those other ones do. But anyway, guys, that'll do it for tonight. Please drop a like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at MMA Fox, Danny at Danny_Lags. We'll be back next week, probably back on Sunday in the Sunday slot. I'll let you guys know if Lags is going to be with me or if he'll be a guest. Take it easy, everybody. Good luck this weekend. Peace.